This is Matthew McConaughey.
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson.
Michael Ian Black.
And you are listening to
Five Questions
with Dan
Schawbel.
Fred, welcome to Five Questions.
Oh, glad to be here. Only five questions. All right.
You originally wanted to be in journalism, but went into the military instead and eventually became an astronaut. What caused you to change your career trajectory?
Well, basically, it was the Korean War. At the time, I wanted to serve my country. I'd had 2 years of college and was 18. I'd graduated from high school at 16, so I had 2 years of college. And my dad had always suggested I try to get in a program that would lead to a commission as an officer. And the only program that fit 2 years of college and 18 years old was the Naval Aviation Cadet Program. Then the Air Force program required you to be 19. So I was going to have to fly airplanes, even though I had never been in an airplane in my life, not even sitting on the ground. So, like 18 years old, you don't think too hard about what's next. You just jump in, and I did. And it turned out I loved flying.
Yeah, bravery is kind of a common theme throughout the book and your career. And I mean, I wouldn't have the guts to do that. I mean, my friends joke sometimes that if I was I'd be the worst person ever to be in the military or to fly a plane or anything like that. But, clearly, I mean, when you're younger, especially, I think even, people who start skiing or start some sort of sport or something when they're younger, there's less fear. And then as you get older, you think about everything.
Oh, yeah. I'm kind of that way now, worrying about children or now grandchildren.
Exactly. How did you recover after your crash during World War II? And what did that experience do to change you?
Well, I was fortunate actually to be in Houston because the University of Texas has a fine hospital down in Galveston, and they're partnered with the Shrine Hospital next door, Burn Institute. And they have a partnership where the Shrine doctors not just care for the children that come in that are burned, some very severely worse than I was, but they also partner with the UT hospital, University of Texas Hospital, for the bidding residents who I guess are thinking or want to become plastic surgeons. So they serve, in a way, they serve the hospital for burn patients in that regard. And I had Dr. Larson, who was the chief doctor at the Shrine Institute, that did the work on me, including all the grafting.
Yeah, and what I was saying is, how did that impact you and kind of change your outlook in life, or maybe more?
It didn't. After I got past what they considered a critical stage, which main concern was in the aircraft crash, I was trapped in it. It ended up going upside down backwards, and I had to kick my way out through a canopy that had jammed shut. And so they worried about had I breathed any hot air or gases which could injure the respiratory system, which is not recoverable. So if that happens, you normally live about 8 to 12 days and expire. And I got past that stage where they knew I'd been all right. I'd not damaged anything that way. And I counseled with the doctors. Both the internists took care of me in the University of Texas Hospital, day-to-day care. And met with Dr. Larson, who was, had surveyed the burns at this time and what we're going to have to do in repair, including grafting, and told him I want to get back to flight status. So anyway, we talked about what was going to have to be done, and about the only thing that we changed in the protocol was where my legs were almost totally burned. They were going to have to put a pin through my ankles to hoist the legs up when they got to the grafting, because when they get done grafting, you can't have weight pressure on the grafts for I think it was 5 days. And we've already talked about it. We're worried about that because the pins through my ankles may have left a hole or a void in the bone structure that the pin went through. And so I worried about flying again, where you change altitude, differential pressure going up and down. So what we did was I had my wife buy some sandals and gave them to suit technicians at Johnson Space Center. And they put Velcro on the bottom of those sandals, and they built a board that went at the end of the bed with matching Velcro. So that way I could clamp my legs into there for 5 days and avoided having my legs lying on the bed to alter the grafts that had been done when that happened later.
It sounds like a horrific experience. And you also had a tough experience as an astronaut. What was the hardest moment you experienced on the Apollo 13 mission, and how did you navigate through it with the rest of the crew?
Well, the hardest point obviously was when we suffered an explosion in oxygen tank 2. We had 2 tanks, oxygen 1 and 2, and 2. It appeared initially, looking at the instrument panel, that tank 1 was okay, and it was not leaking immediately. At least it was not evident. And so my feeling at that point was deep disappointment. I was sort of sick to my stomach almost, because I knew losing the 1 tank of 2 meant we had an abort. And so where we were located at the time, I knew we would not go into lunar orbit, much less try to land. So we would just come home ASAP. And I lost my chance to land on the moon. And I trained on Apollo 8 and Apollo 11 as a backup to Buzz Aldrin to fly the missions, including 11 that landed on the moon, as you know. And here was my big chance, and it was gone. It was gone in a flash.
Bad things happen to good people, and it seems like it just keeps creeping up for you. And when you deal with these very difficult, dangerous situations, what's the first thing you do when encountering them?
Well, the first thing you do, obviously, in an airplane or a spacecraft, is you analyze the situation. In our case, we had an instrument panel that had an array of warning lights, and you could survey that. You had all those instruments to survey that gave you pressure, temperature, quantity, etc. And you try to analyze the systemic part of the problem and what the key part was. And we actually had malfunction procedures. If there was just one failure of a type that you'd go to, that would lead you through a logic tree, a yes, no, that would lead you to a quote a solution to work around. And there was a lot more ad-libbing in the case of Apollo 13 because of the shutdown of the mothership, which had never been planned initially, just to get it even powered down. There was no procedure to power it down either. So the mission controllers had to sort of ad-lib that to safely, with Jack Swigert. Actually, Jim and I had left to power up the lunar module quickly. He had to power it down by himself, and they worked with Jack to get it safely powered down. So there was a chance he wouldn't damage anything while powering it down, and we could get it back up. And it turned out 4 days later.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
But I tell people, and particularly young people, to try to think of the talent they've been born and blessed with, and then try to marry that with a career with that would best use that talent. For instance, if they're not good at math or don't enjoy math or physics or chemistry or whatever, don't think of becoming an engineer. So if you're good at drawing or you're good with music, then you need to use that skill and try to apply the skills you've been blessed with toward a career that fits. Then it'll make it a lot easier for you when you go through the training and be it schooling or technical training or whatever that are part of the resume you need to build to get into that career, and then be successful. And you'll enjoy more going to work every day. You'll tend to be grow in that career and be more successful and happy in life.
I agree. You got to lean into your strengths because that's where the biggest growth opportunity is.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's great advice. And thank you so much for being on the show.